Hey everybody, it's Eddie J on Crypto for GrowMyBag.tv. I hope you're having a good one. So a while ago, I created a video that would explain the differences between a credit card transaction, the full transaction, versus a blockchain transaction or cryptocurrency transaction. When I did it back then, I had certain things that were there, but now I've updated it to actually include transactions per second. And we'll get to that. Transactions per second, transactions are basically all the communications that happens at each step of the credit card or blockchain process. So let's dig in. Let me bring this up for you guys. There you go. This is a great graphic is in that it teaches you or shows you exactly what you need to know. It was actually created by MasterCard demonstrating their process. It was created way back, I think in 2007. I think it shows it right here. Excuse me. So the first thing that happens is you go to a store or a website and you say, I want to buy something. Here's my credit card. You give that credit card number to the merchant. The merchant then sends that credit card information over to the credit card company, in this case, MasterCard, asking MasterCard, hey, can you find out the bank that's associated with this card and verify the information that's there? MasterCard takes that information and actually does that. They go, they figure out which bank it's with, and then they contact that bank. That bank says, yeah, card holders are right and okay for that purchase. They send that information back to MasterCard, right? Sends the approval or sometimes a cancellation, but let's just take the case of we're sending an approval. So they send an approval back to MasterCard. MasterCard then turns around and sends that approval back to the merchant's bank. And then the merchant's bank then tells the merchant, hey, that's okay. It's good to go. Now, if this is a web transaction, what winds up happening is they go through something like an authorized.net or somebody else that actually takes the information from the web, from the website, and then transports that information to the bank. They act like it as a middle person, as a middle tier engine. Other than that, it's the same process. Now, let's pretend you're in the store. At the register, this happens in a few seconds, right? Call it 15, 20 seconds. Not a problem, right? You walk out with the goods or having paid for whatever services, thinking, okay, all is said and done. The merchant knows this is not all that's said and done. However, this is what everybody thinks happens. Everybody thinks this is the transaction. When you get into business and you actually start accepting credit cards, you know this is not the end of the transaction. The next part of the process is the merchant bank sends information over to MasterCard saying, hey, we'd like to settle up, right? Or we'd like to make sure that everything is clear, rather. Next step is settlement. And this usually takes about 24 hours or within a day. And that's not a problem. You send the information over to MasterCard. MasterCard clearing system actually validates the information with the merchants, with the customer's bank. Customer bank says, yep, everything's fine. MasterCard now sends money over to the merchant, right? The clearinghouse, actually, let me rephrase. The merchant MasterCard clearing system provides comprehensive reconciliation to both the merchant's bank and to the cardholder's bank. Everything's good, right? That's basically everything's fine. You get your money. Done. MasterCard pays that money, right? Now comes the part called settlement, where MasterCard settles with the cardholder's bank and everything gets settled. And now the money is there, cardholder gets billed, all that other good stuff. So literally what happens is the cardholder bank sends payment to MasterCard, the counterparty. MasterCard finally gets paid. MasterCard counterparty sends settlement payment to the merchant's bank. And then the merchant's bank says, oh, okay, cool. Everything's good for the cardholder's purchase. Now, that sounds a little bit weird because we already said the purchasing was done over here at authorization. Yeah, right? It sounds a little bit off. It's not off. This is when that transaction is almost over. Almost. And you're wondering, Eddie, why are you saying it's almost over? I'm saying it's almost over because it's not done yet, right? All of those transactions happen within the span of 1 to 3 days. And after that 3 days, after you're done with settlement, it might seem like, well, the merchant got their money. Remember, MasterCard laid out the money first. So MasterCard sends the merchant back only a portion of that money, meaning they've already extracted their fee. So if it was $100, that fee for a merchant can be anywhere from 1.9 to 4.9%. So if it's $100, it can be $1.90 to $4.90, depending on if you have a store, a physical store, brick and mortar, as they say, or an online business, which normally gets higher rates. Cool. That's awesome. Except that that's not done. That's not the end of the transaction. Now think about this. You've gone to the store, you've made the purchase. All of that happens in this blue section. Then at the end of the day, they reconcile the records. These are all the purchases that were made. This is all the money that we're sent you, and we're squared up. Cool, got it. And we sent you the money for that, sans, our fees. All good, right? Then comes the actual settlement where the customer's bank actually pays and sends funds over to MasterCard, thusly reimbursing MasterCard. So MasterCard gets their money back. Now, you would think, okay, Eddie, that's a simple process. That's easy, right? Somewhat easy, just jumbling through all the steps and the round robins and all that stuff. Not too much of a problem. Where do you think risk is in this situation? It happens in a couple of spots. The first amount of risk is, let's pretend a card was stolen. Card gets stolen, everything goes through right here. Now the problem is that the person whose card was stolen doesn't necessarily know right now. So they haven't had a chance to put a stop or a freeze on their credit card. So this part of the transaction happens. That person walks out of the store, let's say with a television or with whatever, bag of chips, doesn't matter. They walk out with whatever it is they wanted to get, and they got it scot-free. They leave. That part of the transaction's fun. So that's one point of risk in that the card was stolen and everything is, hunky-dory up to this point, but nobody knows. Then you go to clearing and, in between that time, the person figured out their card was stolen and they've now said, my card was stolen. They put a freeze on and they asked the person, what was your last transaction that you recall? Let's go over the last few. Those transactions are not mine. Okay. What happens? If they've paid already, if they find out here or at the end over here, well, MasterCard didn't spend any money, so MasterCard's not worried. But the problem is on the vendor side because they don't get reimbursed. They've either performed the services or the person has walked out with the goods. That's called fraud. Now that particular store is out the merchandise and will not be reimbursed. That's a lot of fraud right there. The next level of fraud happens over here or after this point where MasterCard has already sent the money back. That's tough. And the reason why it's tough is because now MasterCard has sent the money over and now the money that they got gets yanked back. The money that the vendor gets pulled back by MasterCard. Even worse, right? So now you have a chargeback, fine. It happens. That's part of doing business and you expect to have that amount of risk. But again, just keep note of all of the points of risk that you're taking on, right? All the points where you actually are open to risk. Because you're open to risk even beyond here. You're open to risk even after settlement. You want to know why? The reason why is because, a person has a right to say, this mug has a hole in it and I'd like to return it. Well, customer comes back with the mug. Store's got to take it back. Or the store sold them the television. Remember the television? Sold them the television. Television was fine. They finished watching the Super Bowl. Now they want to return the television. It's awesome. That's, again, fraud. But what happens is that store has to then take that piece of merchandise back, check it for all the parts, check it to make sure it works, and then give that person their money back based on, does that store, charge a restocking fee? Back in the day, they used to charge a lot of restocking fees. Now, there are similar fees to that at certain stores because you've now opened that box, taken out the television, and then put the television back in the box. You ever go to the store, ever go to Best Buy or one of these electronic stores, and they have an open box sale? That's what that's from. Somebody bought something and returned it, except it was an open box. That's a problem. So now the store has to refund X amount of money. Not cool, because they have to figure out, because they can't, now that box that they have, they legally cannot sell that as a new product. They have to sell it as refurbished or used. So they're not going to get top price for that. So they lose money. Not cool. So when you look at people committing fraud, that's literally what's happening. That's literally what's happening at that moment. And it hurts everybody involved. It hurts the customers because the stores charge more money to cover the risk. Insurance. Think about that. And think about how much everybody's insurance has gone up. Yep. Now you see where this is going. But there's more. There's more. So now the person returns it, store checks it, everything's fine, good customer, they weren't stealing anything. Well, they committed fraud, or maybe they were just returning something and that's it. Still, let's pretend that they bought the television, didn't use it, closed box, they bring it back to the store can then still sell that box. Store already took a hit. Store took a hit. Remember, after this process happens within 2 days. So call it a 2-day process. This whole credit card process, 2 days from the initial credit card process. Unfortunately, money is still not 100% belonging to the store. Why is that? Like I said, you can return your product and get your refund. So now that store takes back this brand new box that you did not open. And then they say, okay, good. It's unopened. Everything looks fine. They put it back on the shelf. Not a problem. They get to sell it. Here's the rub. They still had to pay the credit card fee on that transaction. That store still had to pay the credit card fee on that transaction. So when they give you back all of your money, they still took a hit. Now, some credit cards might actually say, with the deal that they have, they might actually say, oh, no, we'll give you back that money too, blah, blah, blah. 9 times out of 10, they took a hit on that transaction. Okay. And that can be anywhere between 30 and 90 days that person has enough time to return the product. Interesting, right? Ever order from Amazon and Amazon says you have until this day to actually return the product? That is the return policy. When you go into any one of these stores or online, they have return policies. If it's software, oh yeah, no, you can't return software because you already have the software. So you can't return software. People forget about that. But for products, I received this mug. I don't like the color brown it is. I want to send it back. Yeah, wonderful. I take it back to the store. It's a brick and mortar. I take it back to the store. So you can see all of the places that the merchant is taking on a great amount of risk. That merchant's money is not free and clear, like I said, from 30 to 90 days. Now, the numbers could have changed over time, but that's, give or take, that's about it. They have about that much time that they have to worry about a customer returning something and them having to refund the money. Imagine. That's a lot of steps. Keep that number of steps in mind, and recall that what you see at the register is just this little blue spot. Even if you said, well, the transaction is over within 2 days, great. So you say this whole thing is 2 days. Just call it 2 days. That's awesome, right? Huh, interesting. Except they don't tell you about that additional 30 to 60 days that I can return it. Starting from date of purchase that I can return it, 30 to 60 days. So that transaction is not actually over yet. A transaction is not over yet. Now you're probably wondering, so what's Bitcoin? Well, let me make this smaller so you can actually read it. It gets a little clearer. I didn't redo any of these. So this one, I don't even know where we got this, but it really does show you the blockchain process in a similar fashion. So remember that process that happens within seconds at the register? Let's compare this to what happens at the register. Depending on what coin you're using, it can be really fast. XRP, Algorand, Cardano. There are a lot of coins out there that can do transactions in seconds. And we'll get to that in a moment. Now, you go to the website. If you're hosted with Rebel Reach, on our company's website, we host e-commerce websites. You can get paid via PayPal, credit card, or crypto. We absolutely recommend you turn on crypto features. And here's why. Person comes to the website or to your store and they purchase something. That information gets sent over to the broadcast, to get broadcasted to the peer-to-peer network. It then gets brought, back to the server. Server sends it over to the peer-to-peer network. And then that peer-to-peer network, all of those machines out there, nodes, they actually say, oh, they build consensus. Do you confirm this transaction? Is the sender correct? Is the receiver correct? Is there enough crypto in that wallet to actually handle the transaction? Yes, yes, yes. Great. It now is a verified transaction. It takes X number of confirmations per coin, right? So Cardano has a minimum number of confirmations before they say a transaction is good. All of the coins have a minimum number of transactions that say the transaction is good. Once that transaction is marked as good, it then joins other transactions to create what's known as a block. Once that block is created, it then gets written to the blockchain, a public ledger, if you will. Everybody can see the transaction. It went from this wallet to this wallet. This is how much went from that wallet to that wallet. Done. Awesome, right? I'll get to the time frame in a moment. Then once that block is created, it's now written to the blockchain. The person on that other end says, hey, transaction is now finished. Both the sender and the receiver get notified at the same time. Transaction is done. You want to know how long that takes? It can take seconds. I think XRP is like 20 seconds. XRP is like 20 seconds, and it's not the fastest chain out there. It's one of. It's a really good chain. I recommend it. It's a really good chain. But it's not the fastest chain out there. But within seconds, the complete transaction is done. No middlemen. Nobody sticking their hand out, taking the money. If you charge $100 for that television, that vendor is going to get $100. The person making the purchase, that's who pays the fees. And if you're smart enough as a vendor to say, oh, we're going to choose blockchains that have low fees. Well, XRP has low fees. Algorand has low fees. Cardano has low fees. Even Solana has low fees. There are a lot of chains out there that have low fees and high speed. That transaction is done in 20 seconds. Now, that might be a little slower, than a credit card transaction. But remember, the actual credit card transaction goes beyond the register. If you think about a credit card transaction, first the purchase is made, the information is sent, the nodes do this. It's at this point, like everything is actually verified here. The confirmations happen at stage 4. But once this is done, you can actually say, you know what? Everything is checking. You can actually let somebody walk out the store with total confidence. That's within really quick seconds. You can let that person out the store with complete confidence, be like, yeah, everything's good. And you'll receive confirmation within 15 seconds thereafter. Or you just make them stand there and wait and they boop, and they keep it going from there, depending again on which chain you've chosen to use. This whole process, if this is XRP, this whole process is 20 seconds. There is no another 30 to 90 days where the blockchain can automatically yank the money back and send it back to, nope. Unalterable transaction. It's done. If that person wants to return a product, they're at the control of that vendor that has a return policy. You want to return it? We have no problem returning it to you. The return fee is this, and whatever it is, all done. But that transaction is done within seconds. Let me show you the transaction speed. So let's go back and let's remind you about this piece. This happens within about 10 seconds, right? This stage right here happens within 10 seconds. But the whole credit card process doesn't end here in 2 days. Think about that. The initial payment, all that stuff, that doesn't happen for 2 days. So that happens in 2 days, but there's still another 30 to 90 days that person can return. And then that whole thing happens all over again, and the merchant still has to pay fees and all that good stuff because of a return. Because of a return. And the merchant is out that money that they spent paying the credit card company. In this process, that's not the case. In this process, that's done. There's nobody else they had to pay. They collected the whole $100, not 100 minus, that 1.9% or that $1.90 or that $4.90, depending on what the credit card processing fee is. That's all done. I'm going to show you something else. Let's go over the transaction speeds of some of the fastest networks out there. Aptos is right now as of right now, there are a couple of coins out there that I haven't even spoken to you about yet. Aptos says they can do 160,000 transactions per second. You see this little blue box right here? That's Visa. Visa can do max 65,000 transactions per second. Remember, that's the messaging. If you go back, that's the messaging that happens at each step. That's all that messaging that happens. That's all that messaging that happens. Now, fast forward and you go, wow. So Visa's doing that within seconds. Aptos is going to be faster. Sui is going to be faster with 120,000 transactions per second. Near Protocol is going to be faster at 100,000 transactions per second. Solana can do max 65,000 transactions per second. But I told you about Solana. But you can go do your own research about Solana's uptime. Right? And you go all the way down here. You go through Arbitrum, Phantom, Internet Computer, Hedera, Cosmos, VeChain, Polygon, Algorand, and you go all the way down here, and that's MasterCard at 5,000 transactions per second. 5,000 transactions per second. Compare that to Visa. MasterCard's slow. Right? MasterCard is slower. Facts. Remember when I told you XRP can do this in seconds? XRP can do this within 20 seconds. When you're at the register, you're also worried about, well, this credit card transaction is transferring over, phone lines, which also adds some time to everything. But XRP can do it within 20 seconds, which is slower. Like I said, slower than Visa, slower than MasterCard. But that whole transaction at the register, 20 seconds. 20 seconds and done. Finished, complete. Now, Cardano just came out with new numbers and they just live. Toncoin did it and Cardano did it. They both came out. Cardano can handle 1 million transactions per second. 1 million transactions per second. The only reason why Cardano's not on this list is because it made the chart look silly. Because remember, this is 160,000 right here. Imagine what I'd have to do. I'd have to squeeze it to fit in that million transactions per second. So imagine, Sui being almost twice the speed of a Visa, Toncoin being far faster than Visa, Aptos being way faster than Visa, 1 point something times faster. Sorry, 2 point something times faster. This is why it's important that vendors, store owners, usually small store owners, start to understand about crypto. It is a very big deal. It is a very, very big deal. So when you're thinking about, I have a store, I collect money via credit card or PayPal, those avenues for you collecting your revenue take money out of that vendor's pocket, out of your pocket if you're a vendor. And what I'm saying to you is that crypto can actually help vendors as well as customers actually pay faster, collect all their money, and be done with that same transaction within almost the same amount of time or faster. Now, if you're a vendor, wouldn't you like to have a website that had, an e-commerce website that moves faster? Wouldn't you like to have an e-commerce website that says when you get paid, you're done with the transaction? If somebody wants to return something, it's a whole new transaction. Has nothing to do with the original transaction. How's that? So it's separate and distinct. The only thing that would be the same or nearly the same is the amount of money that you'd be returning. Now, if you think about this, when you look at that original model, when you look at this original credit card model, this does not hamper fraud in the slightest. It does not hamper fraud. This model does. You're going to be less likely to try to commit fraud using crypto. Why? Because you can't spend it if you don't have it. Now, for those stores that say, oh, well, I can spend, person can spend crypto using a credit card. Maybe that crypto has a deal with Visa or MasterCard, and Visa and MasterCard do the crypto to fiat exchange and then pay the vendor their money. That vendor would still have to pay the credit card fees. But if the vendor actually says, I'm going to collect the crypto myself, you're not paying anybody any fees. That $100 that you charged for that television, I know, joke, but $100 for a television, great. You get the whole $100, not 98.10, $1.90 for the credit card fee. So it's either $1.90 for the credit card fee or all the way up to $4.99. Now think about that. That's when you're talking about, I have, the average store might have sales that take them all the way up to, let's say, $100,000 a year. Right? Well, now with credit card fees, you're saying 1,900 of that is coming out of my pocket. Now all of a sudden you're talking about real money. And that's if you're on the low end. If you're on the high end, you're saying it's almost $5,000 that's being taken out of my pocket. Granted, they're performing a service, but that's $5,000 that's out of my pocket. As opposed to, I collect crypto and wait a minute, I get all of it. I keep all of my money. That's either additional profit or extra money for you and your employees. Whatever you do with that money, it's your money. So yes, at Rebel Reach, we definitely tell people if you're going to have an e-commerce website and you're going to be collecting, credit cards, we strongly urge you to collect credit cards via the normal credit card process, via PayPal, and absolutely turn on crypto. It costs you almost nothing to turn on crypto. The initial setup, you're good to go. You pay a monthly fee to my company. It's very simple. We don't take a portion, a portion of your proceeds, a percentage. Nope. We charge you a flat fee every month. Flat fee, so you can actually plan what your bills are going to be. So this is why it's very important for you to understand that there's a reason why you should be accepting crypto. And it's so easy. But I wanted to get back to you guys about what the whole transaction process is. Credit cards versus crypto. So I hope now you understand. We'll probably do some more videos like this to help people better understand how crypto works. This is Eddie J on crypto for growmybag.tv, and I hope this educational lesson was good for you. If you do, hit the likes and subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing a lot more. Have a good one. Bye-bye.